The word space is interesting to me in that it is a flexible word that can be used in many scenarios while still maintaining a similar concept throughout. One of the more common concepts of space is outer space, the vacuum, the abyss that lays outside of our atmosphere. Or rather, the more grounded view of space, which is the space around us, the space between us, perhaps your headspace, or the space key on your keyboard. But today I'm going to talk about another sort of computer space, and that is data storage, and how it actually has a lot more influence in our daily lives. But first, before I get into it, I have to actually ask the question, when did you first become aware of the concept of data storage? Now, I'll just assume that most people don't really have an answer to that question, mostly because for the most part, it wouldn't be a memory associated with anything significant. However, I am a rare case because I was basically forced to learn about these things when my SD card got stolen from me when I was 12 by a bunch of greedy brats that I called my classmates. But yes, you heard correctly, I was around 12. A little bit late in life if you ask me. However, it does sort of make a little bit of sense, given I was mostly kind of an outdoorsy sort of kid, spending most of my time playing sports I was bad at and getting hurt. And anything I did do indoors mostly involved the TV. However, I do sort of remember my cousin and I spending copious amounts of hours playing Need for Speed Underground 2 on my uncle's computer with the pregnant monitor screen. Also, the first phone I had ever owned was a brick phone passed on to me by my grandmother, and all it was good for was making phone calls and its very few games, including Bounce, the greatest game my grandmother's phone ever had. It never really had a camera or anything special like that, so no pictures and certainly no internet. But shortly afterwards, I got the Nokia Express Music with its highly ambitious, most anticipated sequel to Bounce, Bounce Tales, a game with improved graphics, a range of characters, actual enemies and an actual storyline, and also a banger soundtrack. IGN 10 out of 10. But notice how I'm fawning over these games. It's mostly because that's really the only thing I ever used phones for. I never took pictures or videos or downloaded anything really until my third phone, the Nokia Asher 306, the first touchscreen phone I had ever owned. Granted, no one really cared about it because that was around the time the BlackBerry was booming, BIS and BBM were taking over the world. Now, the reason I made such a heavy tangent was to lead on to the day I actually started learning about data storage and the space on my phone. The very phone I had my SD card stolen from was that Nokia Asher 306, but having a 2GB SD card stolen from me left me with quite a dilemma because I only had 8MB of internal storage, which is crazy to me because I could only literally store about one song and sometimes, if I'm lucky, a few pictures. It's crazy to me that my phone was literally a PS2 memory card that could make phone calls. But this is good because now we can backtrack a little and go back to the era of the PS2. Now, I got my PS2 a few years after its release, but even then, it never really needed more than 8MB of space, which should be shocking given how the next gen consoles enter into the terabyte regions of storage. Now, it really was a struggle when you lost that thing because you had to leave your console on for days on end to maintain progress in a game. But why do you need this much space in consoles now, when back then 8MB was more than enough? Well, I'm sure you already know that downloading games is rather the norm nowadays, and the sheer scale of games leave their saves to be way bigger than that 8MB memory card. The use of disks and optical storage is very much dwindling, but we'll talk about that in a moment, because I kind of want to segue into hard drives right now, because hard drives are pretty much the most influential pieces of data storage I have ever had in my entire life. A lot of people know their hard drives to be in consoles or maybe computers, and hard drives really were clutch to the previous gen consoles because the sheer scale of games were getting larger and larger because they had to adapt with how massive the games that were being pumped out really were. Now the hard drive is the main storage unit of most computers, containing the OS, few apps and a bunch of software, and of course pictures, videos, and music in various media formats. Really, there's no such thing as a computer without a hard drive, am I right? No, I'm not right. The two most common secondary storage units of the modern day include the HDD, which is, the hard disk drive, or rather the hard drive, and the SSD, which is a solid state drive. The SSD being the sleek, younger cousin of the HDD, introduced in 1991, around 37 years after the hard drive first made its appearance. Now the SSD has been around quite a while in the PC world and only just recently made its appearance in the console world, it being an upgrade you could make to your PS4, and now it actually comes with the PS5 console. It's a better storage unit for various reasons, one being it's electrical and therefore makes use of flash memory, as opposed to the hard drive, which is mechanical and makes use of magnetic storage. But that's not why it's better. It's better because it's less susceptible to damage than the hard drive, because it has no moving parts. But the biggest improvement is that the SSD is much faster. The max speed of hard drives can range from around 100 megabytes per second to 150 megabytes per second. Max, meaning it doesn't really get there, but it certainly is capable of it. However, the max speed of the common SSD goes at an insane 560 megabytes per second, which is considerably faster. Now once again, they are considerably more expensive because of this, and even more so now than back when I got it 2 years ago, because I searched and the price was almost double than what it was back then. Now, because I'm cheap, I got it on special, but that was only for around 10% off. So there isn't that much difference. It's still quite a hefty price, but you can say that it is all worth it for the speed. Speed, a factor I was never aware I really needed to consider when talking about space. But it is important for quite a few, but not all, of your storage needs. Now, because my hard drive was basically dying and it was taking longer and longer to boot up my laptop, and my games were taking years to load, a friend of mine made the suggestion of upgrading to an SSD. Now, I had already learned about SSDs and various other hardware in the IT class that I took in grade 10 through, schoolwork, but I had forgotten most of it because it was schoolwork. So I didn't really know why this was a legitimate upgrade, not only for my gaming, but also for my entire system in general. But it really was because, the laptop started booting up quicker and quicker, taking seconds to actually load up and be ready to use. But bro, I lost my mind when Skyrim took not only a few seconds to open up and load a save, but when fast traveling was basically teleporting. I didn't even have time to go to the bathroom and make myself some food before coming back to that loading screen, giving me tips and tricks, little tidbits about Skyrim. So there's a little bit of a disadvantage to this. Now another upgrade I got recently was the second HDD Caddy, which put simply is like CD, ROM and DVD drive, but for your hard drive, because it sort of replaces that CD, ROM and DVD bay with one that can, contain your hard drive. I made this upgrade because, well, basically I don't use CDs and DVDs anymore. It's a shame, but it's true, although I still do have my CD, DVD-ROM, drive, bay, because I still do have a few games given to me by my friend on disc. The overall usage of optical storage is very much dwindling, which, in all honesty, is quite sad because it is a large part of my childhood. Those CDs were ways of, transferring data, but that's much, much easier now with, the internet. But if that's not available, then flash drives, which is probably the most clutch method of data transfer for my generation at least. For school assignments, leisure, with sharing pictures and videos and, music. Now that we're talking about, transferring data, I feel obliged to talk about, internet speeds and, how that whole shtick works. Around people have the misconception that when they see Mbps or with that smaller case B, they assume it's megabytes per second. But no, that is not true. When it is that small b, it is megabits per second, as opposed to the larger case B, which is, of course, megabytes. The difference between these two is that 1 bit is an eighth of a whole byte. And so if you do want to measure your speeds in bytes, or your download speeds perhaps, then you divide that number by 8, and there you go, buddy. That's around the max speed that your internet provider can get you. It's a little bit of a misconception, and I know I'm probably preaching onto the choir, but it is definitely something I was confused about a few years ago, and I want a lot more people to know so that they are less confused about why the internet is so slow, as opposed to what was put on the cover. To end this video, I want to say that there's just a lot more to the concept of storage space and how it actually influenced my life, and how I really did overlook its general influence in my life. Because phones nowadays can contain tens and hundreds of gigs of storage, making that past struggle for space a little bit meaningless. I haven't even touched on cloud storage, which is basically more space on the internet, so you barely have to delete anything and be a hoarder just like me. Perhaps one day I will talk about it, and similarly maybe I'll touch on, past data storage, because it is a little bit interesting to me, because they even used literal paper to transfer data in the olden days. Thank you for watching.